While showing The Lord of the Rings to little Elaine the gamer, I feel something's missing. We're doing the classic read the book then watch the movie thing. I started, of course, with the Rankin-Bass Hobbit, as the Jackson Hobbit trilogy has a bunch of spoilers for Lord of the Rings, and it has its own problems, which I'll be discussing later. However, obviously I went with the Jackson movies for Fellowship and the Two Towers, and obviously we have to finish with the Jackson Return of the King. However, as some of us old farts know, that's not the only option. I grew up on the Rankin-Bass Return of the King, made in 1980. It was a beautiful mess, not least of which because it was recorded off the TV on a VHS tape on super long play, and I rapidly wore it down through overuse. I actually learned how to use the tracking function on the VCR to help clear up the static. However, even then, I have to say the animated version does justice to Tolkien's statement the book series was unfilmable. The pacing is off. Aragorn comes out of nowhere. Gimli and Legolas are missing. There's no explanation about how Aragorn conquered the Black Ships. Characters appear and disappear without explanation. Theoden and Denethor show up for one scene just to die. And Éowyn is introduced by Merry in the middle of her confrontation with the Witch King. Oh, and let's not forget that starts at the beginning of The Return of the King, missing everything from Hobbiton to Shelob. Kind of a big point there. However, there are 2 points which I would argue the Rankin-Bass was actually superior. First, it kept a large amount of the original prose, and secondly, the Rankin-Bass animated version captured Samwise's journey much better. Don't forget, much of Book 6 is just Sam thinking to himself, observing how things are going around them. Not a lot actually happens compared to the other 5 books worth of action. It's a slow plod as Sam and Frodo make their way painfully across Mordor. It works well because we feel Sam's pain and helplessness, as Frodo is essentially comatose, and we leave his perspective almost entirely. Now, Jackson definitely did show Frodo's suffering and Sam's determination, but you can tell his heart was most into the how can we have these horse riders and footmen take down this mega elephant scenes. The entirety of Book 6 was reduced to 8 scenes out of 70 in the Return of the King Extended Edition. This makes it about 3% of the movies compared to 16% of the book series. However, there's another thing. Jackson was hindered by something that he was otherwise praised for. The reality of it all. Jackson made Middle-earth real and tangible. However, this realistic style dictated and limited what could be done. First, let's talk diction. This difference is most notable in the Witch King fight. Who can forget Éowyn's opening line? "Begone, foul Dwymer-Lake, Lord of Carrion! Leave the dead in peace!" That little speech of Shakespearean dimension works beautifully in animation. They essentially stop time in the middle of a pitched battle for eloquent threats. But this would feel completely and utterly foreign in the Jackson films. While Jackson did keep the outline of the exchange, it's much shorter. They omit Glorfindel's prophecy entirely and keep just the most basic of threats. It's far more realistic, but also far less memorable. Then on Samwise's quest. He is helped greatly by the fact that this is a musical. The Whispered Voices Sauron has nothing on a men's choir singing, "The bearer of the ring, the wearer of the ring, he feels a voice compelling him." The unreality of the medium also helps in fantasy and illusion, which are a heavy part of this section of the story. You see this most in the Samwise the Strong scene. Jackson omitted it entirely, as it would have been absurd in a more realistic setting. Indeed, the concept is absurd. That's the point. The whole illusion is a trick to draw someone's attention so Sam would be fellbeast food. In a realistic setting, this wouldn't have been possible, as the audience would have been laughing at Sam's delusions of grandeur instead of feeling his temptation. Then, after that, you get the simple song, Less Can Be More, which sums up Sam's character very succinctly. Later, as they struggle to move on, and Sam urges Frodo to rest, you hear Leave Tomorrow Till It Comes, just feeling the weight of the world on top of you. This is a very emotional journey, and almost all of the songs are in the Sam and Frodo section, because the entire journey is emotion. The Rankin-Bass version plays very strongly to the strengths of anime. And yes, before you question it, it is an anime, being drawn by Topcraft Productions, which was later reformed into Studio Ghibli. Not only is there the action in the Gondor section, but the quiet emotion and stillness plays very well in the Sam and Frodo section. It gives you time for the emotions to settle, while the Jackson movie just doesn't. As an aside, I think this is part of why the songs in the Jackson movies feel so out of place. Aside from Misty's Mountain Cold, they're just weird. Blunt the Knives is an obviously choreographed, comic, almost cartoonish dance sequence. It completely draws you out of the reality of the situation. Then the dwarven behavior at Elrond's table isn't amusing, it's appalling. It takes you so far out of the experience that Thorin, a dignified prince with rightful claim to all dwarfdom, would allow his comrades to act so absurdly. The Great Goblin Song, on the other hand, is morbidly hilarious. Audiences laughed at his antics, which is exactly the opposite of the emotion the scene is supposed to carry. Why is the Goblin King leading a chorus to intimidate the captives? Is not intimidating. To compare, the Rankin-Bass Goblin Town song is terrifying to the characters and the audience, and Tolkien himself sang Chip the glasses and crack the plates. It's a simple cadence that someone would make up on the spot while washing the dishes. Exactly what it's supposed to be. Yes, I love the Jackson trilogy, and I'm passing it on to the next generation. However, there is something lost in the drive to make everything bigger and flashier. It's part of the reason Tolkien decried the books as unfilmable. Yes, Jackson lets you see Legolas take down a massive war elephant single-handed. But you miss Frodo's dream of peace after the end of the quest. Yes, you have Sam's I can carry you and what are we fighting for speeches, but those are external. To compare, you have So Easy Not to Try, the main theme of the title, which sets the mood for Frodo's entire story. It's a decided internal struggle for Frodo and Sam to just not go on any further, which is their central conflict. There's a reason so many of these songs are beloved classics nearly 40 years later. The emotion is just more clear in music than in any other medium. This version, despite all of its flaws, captures the emotion far better than the Jackson trilogy could ever hope to. Thanks for listening, y'all.